Horrific Nightmares. Back to do. About Last Nightmare. Episode 2. This is where a fellow YouTuber by the name of the Last Shoegazer, his real name is Nick, who's become an incredible friend of mine over the past few months that we've known each other, and myself sit down to watch the same movie at the same time and give a two-part review. My part is mostly the factual side. His part is more or less the synopsis and the actual rating side. This is going to be our second episode. I really enjoyed myself last night. And this week we picked 1980's Maniac. Now, Maniac was a first-time watch for Nick. I've seen it several times, although this has a long history with me. If you're interested, check out my other my horror story on Maniac. But most of the fun of this is being able to introduce a friend or another person to maybe a movie they haven't seen. And in a way, it kind of takes me back to the first time that I watched it. So, I mean, it's just a lot of fun. So, as I said, the movie is Maniac. It's from 1980. It clocks in at 88 minutes and is directed by William Lustig. Now, if that sounds familiar, he's done a lot of horror movies, and in my opinion, a lot of great horror movies. He did the Maniac Cop trilogy. He also did Uncle Sam, which I'm also a big fan of. And of course, Maniac. He also did it's kind of like an action revenge film called Vigilante. And it's been years since I've seen that, but I remember liking it. Now, Maniac stars the late, great Joe Spinell, who I do believe gives the performance of his life in this film. It's very disturbing. It's about the one thing I can say about the film. It's very disturbing. Normally, when Nick and I sit down to watch a movie, or at least the previous time that we've done this, we kind of yuck it up and go back and forth and kind of make fun of the movie a little bit. There really wasn't any of that last night. This was a lot more serious subject matter. And I don't know, Maniac just doesn't seem to me like the kind of movie that you take lightly. At least I don't. But anyway, it does star the late great Joe Spinell, who did pass away on January the 13th, 1989, at the age of 52. My copy actually, well, I'll get into that in a few minutes, but my copy does have the Joe Spinell story, which is about 50 minutes. Of course, Joe Spinell played in some of my favorite films. He played in Night Shift, the comedy with Henry Winkler and Michael Keaton, in which he has one of the best lines ever. He actually had a very small part, but he made me laugh. He played in Rocky, and Rocky 2, where he played the mob boss Gazzo. He played in Nighthawks. And one of my favorites from 1989, which was his last film, it was Rapid Fire with Brandon Lee. Kind of an action film. Martial arts film, kind of. But he was a great talent. The movie also stars Carolyn Monroe. She also teamed up with Joe Spinell for the last horror film. That I have not seen all the way through, and it's partially my own fault. Because when I sat down to watch it, I was kind of expecting another Maniac film, and it's not that, in my opinion anyway. So I kind of shut it off 20 minutes through. I definitely have to give that movie another shot. But Carolyn Monroe also played in The Spy Who Loved Me and Slaughter High. another slasher film. Now, as far as the difference, this is one of the neat parts about tonight, is that I have the DVD from Glu Underground. Nick has the single disc Blu-ray from Glu Underground. Now, I'm sure a majority of the collectors already have this film in their collection, but if you don't, just a few differences to point out. Mine actually does have the Joe Spinell story, as I said, the 50-minute long story. And it also has Gallery of Outrage. Now, Nick's actually it doesn't have those two things, but it has a slew of other things. It has another commentary. Mine has one, his has two. His has a piece called Anna and the Killer, which is an interview with star Carolyn Monroe. His has a thing called The Death Dealer, which is an interview with special makeup effects stars Tom Savini, who also had a cameo in the film. And Dark Notes, an interview with Jay Chataway, who does the soundtrack. It also has, I guess, what I consider to be kind of a tongue-in-cheek sort of thing. It's a segment called Maniac Men. It's an interview with songwriter Michael Sembello and Dennis Markovsky. And I don't know if you remember the song Maniac, but it was from Flashdance. Now his also has, which I have seen, I believe, on YouTube, but his does have Mr. Robbie, which is Maniac 2 promo reel. And I do believe that Joe Spinell was working on that when he died or shortly before he died. I'd have to go back and watch the Joe Spinell story again. But this is kind of where I turn it over to Nick. And he is going to do a synopsis and give our rating on the film. But I'm going to leave the link for part 2 in the description box. And if you like if you like what you see in here, hit the like button and subscribe. But make sure to check out The Last Shoegazer for part 2 of this breakdown and review of the incredible film, 1980's Maniac. Peace.